Hey, welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking about psychic or spiritual abilities, and more importantly, how you can activate them within yourself. Now, this is a very fascinating topic for many of us, but for others, it could strike this chord of fear. It might bring up memories of the sketchy psychic at the spiritual fair, or maybe I know for a lot of us, we've been told by our religion to fear this higher knowledge because the people who have held it throughout history have been the ones labeled heretics and witches, occultists, even devil worshippers. So there is a great deal of fear surrounding this topic for many. But here's the rub. The only people this knowledge truly endangers and threatens is the establishment, the global elites who rule this world. Because if the common folks like you and me were truly spiritually illuminated, then they would no longer be able to herd us like flocks of sheep through their corrupt systems of control, right? They would no longer be able to manipulate us into fighting one another, into dividing ourselves based on these tribalistic mentalities of us versus them. And so activating the third eye, activating our spiritual vision has been the goal of every tradition throughout history. And it involves this process of inner evolution in which each individual moves the dormant spiritual energy at the base of the spine up through the crown of the head, which means we must first balance the lower energy centers or chakras of the body, which have to do with survival and having our needs met, personal desires, a healthy self-identity. And once we establish this and become well balanced in those areas, the energy then moves into the heart. And this is the tipping point where we move from viewing the world through a lens of fear to seeing everything through eyes of love. And at this point, we can then move up to the throat chakra, where we assimilate all of our wisdom and we're able to express our highest truth, the highest ideal of this unconditional love out into the world. And so this is when we arrive at the third eye. This is the seat of our higher spiritual perception. And this is when we begin to see things the way they truly are. We can see beyond the artificial differences and the prejudices that appear to divide us. When we no longer see the world in terms of duality, this black and white worldview of right versus wrong, light and dark, capitalism and communism, Democrat and Republican, Christian and Muslim. Rather, we'll see everything as this intricate and beautiful, perfect dance in which the light and dark are perfect complements of one another, allowing love essentially to experience itself in contrast to the backdrop of fear that seems to sort of define our world. And when we start to see life in this way, when we see the perfection in all things, we can no longer be manipulated into condemning or judging other people. You really just love your neighbor as yourself because you understand that your neighbor is yourself. We're all connected as human beings. And so we see no wrongdoing, no sin, no evil in other people because we recognize that the only reason people act in this way is because they themselves are very hurt and very afraid. And so instead of seeing evil in others and a reason to condemn, all we see is pain and suffering. And we have compassion for that person because we know how much they're hurting on the inside. And so this is the third eye opening. It's the single eye that Jesus spoke about in the Gospel of Matthew when he says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, the whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, the whole body will be full of darkness." And so every spiritual energy center also has a physical counterpart in the body, a gland. And in the case of the third eye, it's a gland called the pineal gland located in the middle of the head. And it's shaped like a pine cone, and it acts basically as the spiritual antenna of our body that receives and translates higher frequency information so that we can understand and interpret it. And so it's no wonder that we see the pine cone depicted in so many ancient cultures. And if we look to Egypt, the Eye of Horus, it bears a striking resemblance to the pineal gland if we were to take a cross section of the brain. Now, this entire process of raising our spiritual energy into the third eye is depicted in ancient traditions as the serpent coiled around the staff, or a rod that's moving upward, because moving energy was always depicted by a serpent, and the staff represents the human spine. And this is actually has biblical origins. It could be found in chapter 21 of the book of Numbers. It says, "The Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten by the snakes, when he looks upon it, shall live." So there's this concept of everlasting life and becoming spiritually self-realized. You live forever. So this is why it's our modern medical symbol called the caduceus. There's a set of wings that you'll see at the point when the energy hits the third eye, because when our third eye is opened, we're said to have wings of illumination, or the sun of enlightenment over our head. Now, I know this stuff can sound very woo-woo and airy-fairy, but modern research and quantum physics is also coming to the same conclusions, that we're not these separate beings inhabiting a mere physical world, as we've been taught to believe, but that we're actually these interconnected beings, and that the entire universe is connected through this unified field of consciousness that scientists call the quantum field. And this is why we can observe things like psychic phenomena at a distance, because time and space basically is an illusion, a constraint of our dimension. And that what we think of as this physical 3D reality is really just a thin slice of what's really out there. You can imagine the universe is this infinite spectrum of vibration and information and potential experiences. And what our eyes and our senses perceive is really just this tiny little fraction of that larger vibrational reality. And as we become more powerful and self-actualized spiritual beings here, our senses can expand to some degree, to be able to detect non-physical phenomena that are slightly outside the range of that thin slice that our vision and our sense perception usually picks up. And so this is essentially what everybody means when they throw around the word psychic or intuitive. Now, how do we activate this third eye opening within ourselves? And step one for this is the preparation. And this means we need to heal ourselves first. We must do the inner work, because the reality is, if we still have unhealed parts of ourselves, if we're stuck in the lower three energy centers of the body, living from fear and judgment, condemnation, anger, unmet needs, greediness, or the need to be better than other people, if this were the case and we actually activated these higher abilities, we would only go on to use them for self-serving purposes, to try to fill the inner emptiness that we feel within ourselves. And the universe will not support this. The universe only supports the use of these abilities for if you're using it from a place of love or true service to others. And so all of our deep wounds, our fears, the things that prevent us from perceiving the world through the lens of love, we have to heal these areas of ourselves to a large degree. And this doesn't mean that we have to be perfect, because none of us are perfect, but it does mean that we must be balanced, and we must be coming from a place primarily of love, for the majority of time at least. And so this is why, even though all these global elites who control our world, they can flaunt their occult symbolism and their Freemason rituals, but they're not coming from a place of love and service. We know that. And so, as powerful as they think they are, they haven't accessed even a small fraction of the true power that's available to us as human beings, right? Love trumps fear always. And so the best way I've found of being proactive about our healing is through what's called inner child or shadow work. And I'll link a video down below if you want to look into this a little bit more. I'm not going to describe the full process here, but essentially most of the wounds and the false perceptions that we carry around in adulthood stem from memories from early childhood that we never resolved and processed, about being unloved and unworthy, of not having our needs met. And so we spend our whole adult lives trying to subconsciously attain these things. And so it's really, the healing process is about examining our deepest beliefs about the world, about ourselves, and about what we deserve, about the emotional attitudes that we kind of carry around that seem to shape our experience. It's about sitting with these difficult emotions and allowing ourselves to process them. And really, this is it's the same process outlined by the great religions and spiritual traditions of learning forgiveness, of learning to love your neighbor, your brothers, your sisters, of learning true humility and service to others. It's really essentially the same process at its core, viewed through a slightly different perspective. But really, through this, we come to see that all the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and our smallness were never actually true, that we chose to hang on to them. And when we realized that it was a choice to carry our past into the future, then we could take responsibility for the experience that we've created and the suffering that we endure because of it. We realized that there was nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be ashamed about, that we were always loved and taken care of. And so as these false beliefs unravel, we could start to move out of fear and into the heart of true love. Another important part of the preparation that I wanted to touch upon is decalcifying the pineal gland. Because as I said earlier, the pineal gland is a spiritual antenna, and when it gets gummed up, it of course can't work properly. It can't pick up that higher vibration and information. And so substances like fluoride are known to calcify the pineal gland, which lowers our intelligence and shuts off our higher spiritual perception. And so if you think about it, it's really not a coincidence that they continue adding fluoride to all of our water in the name of so-called health, which means that we need to avoid this as much as we can. We need to cleanse the physical body, improve our health, so we could flush out the toxins and allow the body to restore its function and raise its vibration. So if you can get a water filter, drink the highest quality filtered water, reverse osmosis, natural spring, whatever you can get your hands on, and don't use any dental products that contain fluoride. And you can also use supplements and herbs and diet to start to detox from fluoride and the other toxic substances that accumulate in the body, so that you can raise yourself spiritually and purify yourself. So that's step one, is the preparation. Step two is to practice the use of your intuitive senses. And we've been so programmed to look to the outer world, I think, for gratification and meaning in our lives. We're taught that the only things that are real are the things that we could see with our eyes, and that what we see outside of us is the thing that defines our experience. So this is really a process of switching from the left hemisphere of the brain, the logical, linear side, to operating more from the right brain, the intuitive and emotional, spiritual side of the brain. And a great first step for this is silence, meditation, prayer, where we are essentially removing our attention from our outer world and placing it on our inner world, becoming familiar with our thoughts and our emotions. And in accompany to that, the best technique I've found for working with your intuitive senses is actually a tool called muscle testing. And you might have heard of this. It's also called applied kinesiology. And I'm not going to go super in depth into the process. If you want to learn how to do it, I actually have a free video course on my website if you want to learn the step-by-step I'll put that down in the description below for you to check out if you're interested. But essentially, the body has this built-in system of feedback, this binary yes or no, basically a truth meter, that yes, this is true, or no, this is untrue. And you could say how that this is how your soul or God kind of communicates with you through tapping into these higher senses. And so this is what you're doing when you learn to muscle test, is you're learning how to tap into your higher guidance. And over time, you'll be able to access this more and more regularly. Your higher psychic senses will start to come online slowly but surely, and you'll start to feel the truth, the yes or the no, in your body. You might just know things and not know how you know them. You might get downloads of higher inspiration or guidance, and everybody has a different dominant spiritual sense. Usually for people, one is more dominant than the rest. It might be for some people clairvoyance, where you could see clearly, and these are the people who could see other people's auras and energy fields, or they could see beings from other realms. For other people, it might be clairsentience, where you feel other people's emotions, or claircognizance, where you just know things, or you have premonitions of future events. For me personally, it's clairaudience. That's my dominant sense, is clear hearing, where the best I could describe it is it's basically like hearing the voice in your head when you're reading. But this is how higher information comes through, is through the hearing sense. And but this is why I like muscle testing, because it trains you in a way that's slow and gradual, and it doesn't need to be super complicated. And there's other ways you can practice this intuitive way of experiencing the world. It could be as simple as practicing the use of imagination or visualization. These are all kind of ways of connecting to our higher divinity. If you've ever done anything like QHHT or past life regression, you'll know that an essential part of the process when you're dropping down into these deep states is the visualization. The practitioner will walk you through, see a red bird or a blue car, that sort of thing. But what it's doing is it's activating and prepping these non-physical senses and kind of bringing them online so you could use them to access and understand these higher streams of information that are flowing in. Okay, so that's number 2, is to practice. And number 3 of the becoming more intuitive or psychic is to just put yourself out there and to be of service to others. These spiritual gifts are really not for us to hoard for ourselves and to use for our own personal gain. They are ours to put to use for the greater good of humanity and other people. It's a way of, the way I think of it, it's like divine love flowing through us and out into the world to use for accessing deeper insight and ideas, higher inspiration, for the healing of other people, and showing other people who they are and how powerful they are. So early on, you may not be super confident in these abilities. You probably won't be. Or if you're like me, you might be kind of unsure if the information you're getting is actually accurate. But what I found is that when I started using it to try to help other people as best I can, that information would just drop in a lot more powerfully than when I was trying to use it for myself. So I might be helping another person heal emotional trauma, and I'll get something that drops in like there's a trauma at age 8, and I would ask the person, did this happen when you were 8 years old? And they'd go, yeah, actually, I've always felt this throughout my life. And moments like that were kind of affirmation that the information I was getting was true. And that sort of thing gave me a lot of confidence in these abilities, that I could actually use it to get good information that would help other people. But the reality is, that didn't start to happen until I started putting them to use for the greater good and not just myself. So you might be a little hesitant at first, but I think you'll find that when you put yourself out there, the universe will extend itself and meet you there as well. And so these insights will start to come on stronger and stronger when you're using it to benefit other people. So just start giving readings or channeling for other people, or offering to do healing sessions on your family or your friends or someone you trust, and get feedback from that, whatever that might look like for you. But just take that first step, and the subsequent steps will continue to reveal themselves. And pretty soon, all of this will just start to become a natural part of who you are and how you operate in the world. It'll feel much more natural to be of service to other people, to share your highest truth, to follow your heart's inner guidance with all the decisions you make without fearing what other people are going to think of you. And so you won't need to overthink and plan for every possible outcome, because you'll just trust. You'll know in your heart what decision you need to make next. And this is coming from somebody who's extremely analytical and who's lived my entire life in my head trying to plan and control everything. But I could tell you it's an extremely liberating and exciting way of operating too, to be able to live in this sort of trust and flow. And no, it won't take away all of your problems and your suffering. There's still going to be tough stretches and challenges and things that push you past your limits, of course. And I'm living that every day. I'm still healing, and I'm still being taught how to trust in new ways every single day. But I do believe that this is how we as human beings were designed to function, that we're meant to live in this state of flow and surrender and trust, to know that we're not these finite and separate beings, but to experience ourselves as intimately connected with one another, to live in harmony with our planet, and to be in communion with God and with all that is. And so I think that if we even just this small percentage of the population can start to tap into our true power as spiritual beings, it's only a matter of time before the rest of humanity follows suit. And we will create this whole new earth, a new world, a world that we truly love living in, and a world that we are proud to be a part of. So I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching this. If you're enjoying this content, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. It really, really helps my channel out, helps me to get this message to more people. If you're looking for some other resources and videos, I'll link those in the description down below. And if you're wanting to work through this process together, I do have one-on-one openings, so I'll put that information down below as well. So that's it for today. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys next time.